Hi, welcome to this session of the American Franchise Academy. My name is Aisha Bascaro, and today I have a very special interview for you. This is going to be with Meredith Holly, a person that it is an expert on creating a safe and healthy work environment in small businesses. I thought that this would be a great way to provide franchisees and independent business owners a key into how to be able to make that happen. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi, Meredith. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. Thanks for having me, Aisha.
Great. I am so happy that you agreed to do this interview with us today so that our people, our franchise world can learn about this such an important topic for our industry. Obviously, how about you introduce yourself, a little bit of
Yeah.
your background so people get to know who you are?
Yeah, totally. So I am Meredith Holly. I'm a lawyer and life coach. I I help employees stop toxic work environments without losing their jobs. And one of the ways I do that is by helping business owners respond effectively to complaints about workplace culture issues, work environment issues.
Perfect. Yeah, and that in this day and age of 2020, it is such an important topic, right? And in the franchise world, obviously, a lot of our employees are first-time job seekers, right? And they don't really know how to be employees or
Right.
how to work within, a company or an environment, organization. And our franchisees, a lot of them are first-time business owners, and so they don't sometimes know how to navigate their business, along the issues that come with the people. And while we do talk a lot about people management and how to find the great ones, how to onboard them and how to keep them and how to motivate them, we don't really go, deep, into this topic like the one that you're an expert on, right? And so, so glad to have you here and be able to share this information with all of our people. So let's go ahead and get started with the first question for me is knowing how important this topic is, and knowing that, like I said, a lot of the franchisees are just new in this business environment. What are the type of things that you would recommend for these small business owners that are growing and they want to become multi-unit and build an enterprise? What kind of things should they be thinking, and what kind of things should be doing and implementing in their business so that they can be proactive and protect themselves and their people in this such an important topic?
Yeah. I mean, I think as somebody who started my own business myself, I know it's so stressful. Like you're learning, you have such a steep learning curve just on the business side that then when you add people problems in, you kind of just want to quit your business sometimes. And most of us, I mean, what I see is not, I think franchise owners actually get a lot more training than most business owners do about responding to problems just because franchises are standardized. But the problem that I've seen is that we haven't developed good systems for responding to these problems. Anyway, most of us are sort of taught that if you do have like a discrimination issue, if you have a harassment complaint, if you have something like that happens, you're like a bad person, that you have a bad business, something's gone terribly wrong, and like you need to make sure nobody finds out about it, or you're going to have a brand problem, right? And what you actually see is there's research studies that show that the public perception of a harassment or discrimination problem in a business is determined by the business's response, not by the existence of the problem itself. So when the public sees a business try to cover up a problem, and generally cover-ups do become public, like it doesn't stay secret, then the
It's like I
public
tell people, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I tell
no.
my guys, right, and ladies, I said, you try to say have people not know how much people make, everybody finds out how much people make.
Yes. So get ahead of the problem.
Absolutely. Right.
Absolutely.
I would teach them a system in which we say, instead of hiding it, no, post it in the wall. We want everybody to know
Yes.
how much everybody makes and how they got there, you know?
Well, and that's another important discrimination issue is if it is secret, the perception ends up being that it's because of discrimination that you kept it secret. And this is
or
true.
favoritism, right? Discrimination or favoritism, right?
Which usually, I mean, it doesn't feel different, right? Discrimination, favoritism, nepotism, even the lawful discrimination. I mean, so for example, when we think about discrimination under the law, there are certain characteristics that are protected, like race, gender, physical, mental ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, religion. And when you're an employee and you feel discriminated against, it doesn't matter if it's because of your weight or hair color or eye color or because you like a certain sports team, like it feels terrible. Unfairness feels terrible. So the best rule I think people can have is don't be a jerk, be respectful, be kind, be transparent on the business owner side. But so what I see is that when like the main thing that businesses do wrong is they think that something terrible has happened if they receive a complaint. And actually it means if you receive a complaint, it means you've created an atmosphere of trust, I think. Discrimination, harassment are just happening everywhere. It doesn't mean that you've hired bad people, that something terrible has happened. The vast majority of discrimination that happens is basically unintentional and based on something that somebody meant to say what they said or do what they do, but they didn't intend it to be harmful to somebody else. The vast majority of it. So if you can create an open communication system and expect to have complaints happen so that you can address them and treat it as a good sign that you received a complaint, then I mean, the way I think about it is,
I
go
really
ahead.
love that point. I love the fact that you're right. If people are willing to come forward and talk about or report a complaint of any kind, you're right. That means that you have created that environment in which people are willing to step up forward. And how great is that? And sometimes it might be nothing, but at least the fact that they know that exists. Like, so if you're not hearing anything, because, when you have employees, you have, more than 3 people together, they have personalities and something's going to happen, right? The drama is coming, that's it. And the fact that, so if you don't hear something, then that's when you might be concerned, because if you don't hear anything, something's up.
They don't trust you, and you haven't created in the systems of franchises. I think it's just important to create what is the system for folks to tell you there's a problem. Like nobody wants, for example, to have glass in your food, but you definitely want to hear about it if there's glass in your food, right? And so that you can correct it.
Yeah. And it's funny because as the academy, we actually do provide, we're a systems academy, right? So we take the discipline process of the franchise model that they apply in the brand, the product, the service, the image in a very consistent way. So we apply that discipline into the business management side on how to hire the right people and keep them longer, and how to control your costs, how to control your potential theft and manipulation, how to read financials, how to do the report and the marketing. So we transfer all those disciplines into systems on business management versus brand management, right? And so we definitely talk about all of those things, and that creates the consistency of results, right? And so
the thing I see that business owners do is they have all these systems that totally work and that are totally tested, and then they encounter a allegation of discrimination and they throw all the systems that work in other areas out the door and do a bunch of bananas like accusations and meltdown. And you already know that you have systems in place that do work to address issues, and we just don't use them in this one area for some reason.
And we, as the academy, do provide the systems that we provide is to address like incidents and accidents and robbery and things like that. But you just open my eyes to there's a missing piece, right, that we might want to be incorporating into our programs, so that to give them some sort of that kind of guidance. But for sure, this is very specialized, and I think it's very important. So I mean, what would that system will look like? Just how would you kind of recommend that they go about it?
Yeah. So the way I think about it is that there are basically three different categories of complaints. And we see these categories of complaints in everyday life anyway. There's the category where you basically just need to give all the staff a reminder of what the standard is. There's just a reminder category that does not require any kind of investigation. And you see this like every workplace I've ever worked in. There's some kind of issue where somebody has a sandwich in the fridge, somebody else eats the sandwich, and then everybody's really mad because Joe ate my sandwich, right? And you go to your boss and the boss is like, okay, well, we need to label food, and I'll send out an email reminder to everybody, like, don't eat each other's food. If you need something, come to me. And that resolves it, right? Everybody is, it resolves it, and everybody freaks out. But we don't say, I will investigate whether the sandwich was really there, right? We just send out an email. So most employees, I mean, and with franchises, you do tend to have a lot of young employees that haven't had, but they have had school experiences that are kind of similar. Everybody establishes what they expect. Most employees that come forward with a discrimination complaint expect that kind of response from the complaint. And instead, the way most people respond is, I will conduct an investigation. And the employee feels like, well, you didn't think I was lying about the sandwich. Why do you think I'm lying about this? And like, I don't want I don't want this person to get in trouble. You sent out an email with the sandwich issue and just reminded everybody, like, don't eat each other's food. Why can't you send out an email and just say, don't touch each other in the workplace, no touching. Don't hug somebody if you haven't asked whether they want a hug. Don't comment on people's clothes. Like, just send out a standardized email. Then you have another level that does require an investigation. So that's where you potentially might want to discipline an employee. You might want to suspend them, but you're not entirely sure what happened, if there's a good explanation for them. But if it rises to a disciplinary level, you may want to conduct an investigation. Then there's the third category where even if you investigate and find out they didn't mean to do the thing, or it was kind of a misunderstanding, the allegation alone is so terrible that you're going to have to fire the person to begin with. You do not have to conduct an investigation in that situation. Sometimes, I mean, I used to work at a flower shop, and there were like very rich women that came into the flower shop. If one of those women said that I gave them bad service, that would probably be a fireable offense, even if it wasn't true.
Oh, really?
I mean,
and wouldn't that put you or the business owner at a legal problem for firing somebody just for
an allegation?
Yeah.
No, most states, I mean, you have to look at the laws in your state, but most states are at will employment. We fire people because we don't like their shirts. We fire people because they were 10 minutes late. There's no, if you work for the government has due process requirements. So that's a separate thing. Private businesses don't have due process requirements.
So even if an employee just make an allegation, you can, as a business owner, can actually fire the person accused just by the mere accusation?
You can, and you want to make a good judgment about whether you want to.
Okay. All right.
So there's like not, I mean, I'm sure there's not usually the right to a job.
Yeah. We have the at will. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I still feel that there should always be a process. Listen, there should still be a process, a disciplinary process that you should go through, even if by law you shouldn't have to, because you know what happens, and this is what I talk a lot about, is if you don't have a process, a disciplinary process in which you are going to follow when something, an action or behavior happens in your organization, and you go from zero to fire. Maybe there might not be a legal implication for you, but there will be a moral, a cultural, a motivational implication, a consequence in your organization if you are, as a leader, appear to not be fair, to not be right, to be mean, because that's the culture they're creating, and you don't want to create that culture. So it doesn't mean just because you can fire somebody, it doesn't mean that you should go that way, because then the culture that you're creating is not the one that is going to allow to give the people the motivation and inspiration to give you that extra effort out of the loyalty and care they have for you. So as a leader, you have to be very careful of how you make the decisions, regardless of whether you can or cannot make those decisions.
It's true. And so that's why you do want to me, you want to think about it in those different categories so that it's standardized. So for example, if an employee came to you and said, I heard Joe talking about embezzling $10,000 from the company, you would likely suspend Joe while you investigate, just to keep Joe away from any financial assets. We can extrapolate that similarly of if an employee says, Joe attacked me in the alley last night, and shows you a bruise and says, I went to the ER this morning. Joe doesn't automatically have a right to come into his shift that day if you're concerned that he might attack another employee, right? Or Jane. It doesn't have to be. My experience is we believe that these are like women experience sexual assaults. So my background is in litigation against companies, right? So I know what we sue companies for, and I represent employees in harassment discrimination lawsuits. And so I look at it from that side of like, how am I as a employee side employment lawyer gonna view this? And, if you have an employee that's creating a danger in the workplace, that's what I would see as a potential situation where you don't then turn around to the person who has the bruises and like went to the ER that morning and say, well, I'll investigate whether that's really true. Do you know what I mean? Versus like, I don't know. I think that we can look at it in the flexible way that we look at theft. If somebody, if one employee says, if employee A says employee B, I saw them take $5 out of the till, you might investigate that, right?
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
a lot of franchisees nowadays have cameras that they can do an investigation and actually have proof. Technology has helped nowadays into finding out, the truth of what is happening in our units, right? So So the first, you said 3 levels. So the first level is, you hear it, you send an email, send a standard reminder of what the standard should be, right? The second level is now you might want to investigate and get the sides. And
because you might want to discipline. Like investigations are always directed towards disciplining the employee who potentially committed the offense. They're not, the problem that I end up seeing is they are not supportive to the person complaining. And so like it's just not in its nature. It's not intended as a support to the person complaining. So a lot of times people complaining are so afraid to complain that investigations feel punitive to them.
Wow. Because I conducted my fair share of investigations, as you can imagine, in 30 plus years. And I would have thought it would be different, because when we did conduct investigations, we will go, it will be, for me, my perspective was, we're taking that person serious. Okay, would you please put it in writing in your hand, what your experience was, right, of everything. So literally it's a blank piece of paper, and we ask them to write everything that happened, when, how, what, where, time, everything. And then with that information, anybody that's mentioned that could have been a witness or the person being accused, we will go and ask them to write their statements, right? As a way for us investigating. Once we gather all of that, then we'd have to make a decision. So you feel that even that process, the person being asked to write the statement, they sometimes feel it as punitive. Or as not supportive.
I've never not seen them feel that way. I can think of one time when I've had people say, well, they didn't even investigate. But it's scary. It's scary to talk about. It's scary for the person who believes they're experiencing discrimination or harassment to talk about it.
Mm.
It's scary to put it in writing because it feels like you're going to be questioned or grilled or suspected. It's scary to out other employees as potential witnesses and like get your friends in trouble is what it feels like.
Mm.
It's scary to think that you're the person getting the other employee in trouble and that they're going to call you a liar. It's pretty scary. It's scary to report discrimination, and it's scary to most people haven't ever been involved in any kind of investigation. And so it's scary to be confronted that there's going to be an investigation.
You know what? That's it's good to know. It is
Yeah.
definitely good to know. So
I
what's the
mean,
third level?
the third level is just the third level is just this is a fireable, suspendable offense anyway. I mean, at that level, I kind of think of like blatant criminal conduct as um just a fireable offense. If somebody gets arrested for
Mm.
the accusation, you already know that like the police have probable cause for the arrest. And so you don't have to independently conduct your own investigation in order to take action to keep the workplace safe.
Mm.
So it's like if you hear about a spill on the floor, you don't need to conduct an investigation before you tell somebody to clean it up.
Right, right, right. No, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's great. I had never seen it, but put that way. So that's perfect. So having that system, that's perfect. I love
Yeah.
that. So now we have some guidance on how to do that. Now let's look at it from the perspective of the business owner, right? Now they're human beings just like
Yeah.
anybody else, and they own a business. They didn't embark in a business so that they can have a lot of people and drama to deal with, right? They usually do it so that they can invest their money, their savings into something that's going to give them hopefully financial and time freedom. And here they find themselves that the way to do that is by having a lot of employees. And some of these franchisees, some of them are extroverts, some are introverts, some have no problem addressing confrontation, and some of them do not like it. So what kind of things would you recommend as a business owner that if skills or abilities or things that maybe you should have or develop, or just if a way to look at how they lead to make these kind of things, a little better in the organization?
I mean, I always think I'm always sort of challenging myself to get uncomfortable around discrimination and harassment issues, like challenging myself to look at my own privilege and be clear about my own areas of privilege and see that as an advantage and as an area of strength and power and leverage that I have that I can use towards creating a less oppressive, more fair society, right? And get realistic about that, and then follow leaders who don't have my privilege and hear their perspectives and hear their voices. But I think in terms of structure for an employer, I think that it's really important to make it clear how employees can tell you about this kind of problem, and not just tell employees that they won't be retaliated against. I actually don't love it when business owners say this is a non-retaliatory environment, because I think the employees will tell you if it's a non-retaliatory environment, like saying it alone. And when you say it and you don't follow through with that, employees are that much more outraged. But I think if you can if you can convey that the rules are we treat each other with respect and kindness, then that creates a higher standard. It's not just non-discriminatory. It's like act respectfully to each other. And then you hear about problems before it becomes a discrimination allegation, usually. And then if you can create a clear reporting structure with multiple reporting options and at least one confidential reporting option that's clearly posted and trained to the employees, then they know like it opens the space to talk about problems and actually solve them. And I think if you can, in your mind, treat it like a business problem, not like a crisis, if you can, in your mind, say there's going to be a customer that hates the food at some point, like that's just going to happen. And there's going to be an employee who feels afraid at work at some point. And it's just a problem that we're going to solve and create a structure to solve, not something where we all have to like freak out and lay down and cry and tell people that we're not bad people, try to convince people that we're not evil or get defensive. It's just a problem to solve. Then I think
I love it. And I love the idea that, if you don't hear anything, that you need to find out why you're not hearing anything, because you should be hearing something. And if you are hearing something, don't feel bad, because that means that you have created an environment in which people are willing to come forward and say something. Mm-hmm.
The other metric, I think, and I think you talk about this, but the other metric to look at is your turnover. If you're seeing high turnover with people with certain characteristics, or if you're seeing people with certain characteristics not apply for your positions, that's another place where you could even do a survey of the employees with questions that are designed to find a problem, not questions that are designed to like intimidate employees to not telling you the problems, which most surveys have some kind of.
Wow. That's and we do talk about a lot of surveys and evaluations and, employee satisfaction surveys, but this will be a different kind, just, with a specific objective. I like that. All right. Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Thank you very much, Meredith. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we close the call?
Well, I just always like to offer to people, my book, The Inclusive Leader's Guide to Healthy Workplace Culture, is available at healthyworkplaceculture.com. And so that's just free, and anyone's welcome to download a copy of it. It goes through the structures that I think are important in order to move towards an actively healthy workplace culture, not just avoid hearing complaints of harassment, like have healthy, thriving employees who are really focused on work and doing well.
I love that. So it's a gift. So for all of you that are listening, that are watching this recording, whether it's, in YouTube or any other of our platforms, Meredith, thank you for the call. So can you tell us again the name of the book and the domain, or where they need to go to get it for free?
Yes, it's The Inclusive Leader's Guide to Healthy Workplace Culture, and it is at healthyworkplaceculture.com.
Wonderful. Wow, that is fabulous. Thank you very much, Meredith. I'm sure they're going to appreciate that. And we are going to be putting on the bottom of this video a way to contact Meredith. So if you would like to have her come to your organization and maybe do a little bit of training on this type of topics, very important. She can do all kinds of different things that are wonderful for small business organizations, that just make sure to have, communications and keep that communication going. And, or if you have a specific issue that you would like to get some guidance, I am sure she would love to be there for you. She's fantastic, been a friend of mine for a long time. And so that's why I figured, this would be a great way to add to our clients. So thank you, Meredith. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Wow, what a great interview with Meredith. I'm sure you got a lot out of it, because I know I got a lot out of it. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to our channel so that you can see more videos like this as they come up in the future. So until then, see you next time.